Welcome to another episode of Artist Spotlight, the podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Stringer, as usual. And we've got a terrific guest today. This gentleman is a photographer, an actor, stand-up comedian, an executive producer, a director, an author. I kind of need a breath of air to go through all the various things that he's doing and does. And with that, I want to welcome Jeff Garlin to the podcast.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, Jeff, I, have seen your work certainly in Curb Your Enthusiasm and the Goldbergs and Mad About You and your stand-up specials, et cetera. But it was February 2020. I flew into LA and I read an email that said at the Leica Gallery that Jeff Garlin is having a photo exhibition. And I thought this can't be the same Jeff Garlin I've heard of from, your other side of your work. And I get there and it's you. And before I know it, you are enthusiastically walking me and others through the gallery, and you're pointing out your work, you're explaining it.
The Saturday tours. I said to her, I go, do people ever do tours to Paris? Who she runs the gallery there. I said, do people ever give tours? She goes, no, not really. I go, every Saturday I want to give a tour. Will you let people know that I'm giving a tour on Saturdays? And I would go around and tell the story of each picture.
Well, and you did, and not only did I enjoy that, but it's like anything. Somebody says, "Oh, my uncle Larry's a photographer." Oh, Larry's a photographer, and then you see Larry's work, and the pictures have people with poles coming out of their heads, et cetera. So I didn't know what to expect. I had no idea, and so I'm seeing the images. I'm hearing the backstory. I'm seeing the passion that clearly you have, the knowledge you have. And I thought, wait a minute, this isn't like somebody's Uncle Larry. Jeff knows what he's doing. Certainly, he's passionate about it. And so, I guess my thought is, the gallery show was titled Big Bowl of Wonderful. How did you decide that just fit that exhibition at that time?
It's a phrase I've used before. And Paris told me that I have 10 minutes to come up with a name because I've been putting it off. And I sat there, and at the 9th minute, I went, oh, Big Bowl of Wonderful. Oh, that's kind of how I shoot. So that worked out perfect.
Yeah, no, that and sometimes it's like the gut instinct. You have, like you said, you've got almost no time and it just fits. So how was it that you first got started doing this, that you first started thinking that photography was something you wanted to do?
I guess it was, look, I had a bunch of, starting, let's see here, James would have been, my older boy is 29 now. So I'd say 18 years ago, I got a Nikon F100 shooting on film. I moved from that to other Nikon autofocus SLR digital cameras. And then I discovered three artists, Alfred Eisenstadt,
Sure.
Jim Marshall. Anyhow, Alfred
I want to say Bresson because everybody says Bresson.
Oh, Bresson. Yeah, Bresson too. And Elliot Erwitt. All these people, what do they all have in common? They shot Leica. So what did I do? I got a Leica M3 in very nice condition and a 50 Summicron, the classic combination. And I started shooting with that, having no idea what I was doing, especially on the M3 where it's all manual. It's not even like aperture priority. You have to set the aperture. You have to set everything. There's not even a meter inside. You got to hold it. So I started shooting with a Leica somewhere in the early 2000s. I don't even know. So at some point I started, and one of my favorite photos I've ever taken, which was all about luck, is of Larry David. We were in New York, and Larry and I are having lunch in this gymnasium. We're filming there. And in the background, I see Larry David standing with his hand on his chin, wearing the same things Larry's wearing. And I said to Larry, will you do me a favor? Will you put your hand on your chin this way? And he did. And I snapped two shots. One, the stand-in is in focus and Larry's, bokeh, if you will. And then the flip on the other side where Larry is in focus and the background person is in focus. And it's one of my favorite pictures I've ever taken, but it was all luck. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't even know if it was in focus. I had no idea what I was doing. None. That's it's not even well, it's a decisive moment, certainly because I saw what I saw and captured it, two shots, bing, bang, move on. That's how I usually shoot, no matter what. But the idea that I had no idea what with settings and how to use a rangefinder, and that's pure luck.
So you started well into adulthood, really getting into photography,
Oh
not
yeah,
like as
yeah.
a teen or
I would mark my really getting into photography was discovering the work of Jim Marshall, Alfred Heisenstadt, etc., all the people I told you, and
sure.
seeing that they had in common what Mary Ellen Mark, oh my God, one of my all-time favorites. I have a bunch of her prints. That Leica. And so I went Leica. And then the guy who got me started in my world of Leica, because my first digital Leica was the not X100, that's the Fuji, the
Right.
X1. It was similar in that it was a 23 millimeter lens, which equaled a 35.
Hmm.
I got that at Camera West in Palm Springs.
Okay.
Sean Craner, who owns the Leica store San Francisco, he really got me started. And ironically, if you will, because I noticed a bigger world. I'm going in to get this point and shoot high end Leica, like
Hmm.
a what's the CMOS sensor? Is that the
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
yeah
The CMOS sensor. Yep.
yeah? And that day he received his first M9s. So he
Okay.
really, and then he told me how much they cost, and I looked at them and I thought, well, that's not going to happen anytime soon. And
Right.
then eventually I got my M9. Never stopped at the M8. Went to the M9 monochrome, and so on to where now M11 monochrome and M11. And the Leica Q343, which is a miracle camera for me. Because I 550. I'll shoot 28. I'll shoot 75. I've got a 21. Like I've got a lot of lenses, but I pretty much live in 3550.
You mentioned the Leicas, and you and I both were up in New York City recently for the 100th anniversary event,
Right.
and they put on a phenomenal, I thought, event, and you saw so many people kind of not only enjoying the festivities but really intrigued about getting into the Leica system.
Yeah, I'm sure they broke records at the New York Leica store because I asked Rob Tyrell, our mutual friend. Uh, he goes, he goes, I can't even. He was numb because it never stopped. It never stopped all weekend. So he hadn't made heads or tails, but he said, I've never been part of something like this. This is insane. So that's great. More people should. But Leica is essentially it's a Porsche. You know what I mean? It's a BMW. It's not a Toyota. It's not even a Lexus. It's something completely different. So that it's not a wide audience that you go for. And you know, you appeal to an audience of three types of people, I think. People who are hobbyists, serious hobbyists, actual photographers, and dentists who collect things. That's Leica's audience. It is. And even one night I met at the event, I met a dentist who,
Oh, but it's perfect.
yeah. So they're all wanting the exclusive, whatever's a collector's piece.
Sure.
And I don't even think they're that interested in old M3s, M4s, etc. I think it's the new digital special editions and lenses.
It's funny you say that, because when I went there and I just saw just a mass of people from every walk of life, every background, etc., I said to myself, wow, this is a lot of dentists. I actually said that to myself,
Well,
because of course
that's
that.
been the joke, but it's based on truth.
Sure.
It's like people who have a Porsche for the purpose of showing people, showing it off. A dentist with a 911. Actually, I should say that my partner's father is a dentist, retired, who has a 911.
Right.
But
There you go.
he has a stick and he's passionate about driving. But he's not one of those people. So there are exceptions. I'm generalizing, obviously,
Sure.
but want to point that out and not explain. No, that dude loves driving. He drives a stick. If you drive a stick, you really care. If you're using a manual camera, you really care. It's
Hmm.
it's about the experience in a big way. But Leica is a lot of different things. But for me, it's the simplest. It's the most simple way of shooting.
I mentioned sort of at the top all the different things you've done in your entertainment career, and what I'm wondering is, with photography being really of a solo nature, even if you're photographing someone, you could be photographing the woods or architecture, but you're doing that, you're controlling that. It's a very insular type of, it's like
It's
a
not
me
even a
thing.
matter of me controlling it. I do two things. I set my settings and I check framing. Larry putting his hand on his chin is a rare me telling somebody what to do. It was so minor, I was okay with it. Like in my editing for my digital photos, if I can do it in dodge and burn, I'll do it editing. I don't crop. I might dodge and burn to make someone who's sort of distracting in the picture a little, faded, if you will.
Sure. Stand
Um,
out a little
but
more.
but
Yeah.
if I can't be done, so I'm very naturalistic. I don't change the framing, and I don't do touch ups. I do, like I said, dodge and burn, what have you. But for me, it's about setting my camera and the framing. And then I'm on the lookout. And it'll be like, oh, but I'm not even lookout with my camera. My camera's on me, but I'm in the lookout, just looking around the room. And then a moment will hit me. And then if I get lucky, which I fail way more than, I'm successful, I'll get a moment. And then how great is the moment as a photograph? There's so many levels to it. That's why even when I do digital, I wait to look at the pictures. I don't look at them right away. So I take the emotionality out of it, which film naturally does. And that is, sure, it's convenient. And yes, if I'm shooting an ad, for something, I got to check it. But for what I use it for, which is my own personal joy, I've got no, I'll develop not myself, but I'll have the film developed with instructions. I have a photo assistant who he's under strict instructions, but then both are printed out. And I look at it. Well, first I look at the computer and go, that might be something, print it out. And then if I really like it, that's something. And guess what? I don't look at it again unless I have to.
Hmm.
In my house, I have all different photographers up, not my own work. Nope. Not interested. If I record that comedy album, I'm going to sit and listen to it over and over, watch my comedy special over and over, which I have to do in the editing when I make a
Sure.
special. But once it's on Netflix, etc., I don't look at it again if I can help it. I make a movie, I'm done editing, I don't look at it again. So why would it be different with photography? So I don't want to see my photography on the wall. Seeing a Mary Ellen Mark print, and I have quite a few, that brings me way more joy than if it was my prints hanging up there, and I got nothing to show or prove anyone.
Yeah, and that sort of raises a thought that I often have. For every 100 photos we make, there is a very small number that will ever print, and it's gotten me to a place of realizing that I do enjoy those images that I feel like I can be proud of and kind of tell a story. But I think for me, it's the act of photography that I
Yeah,
get so much joy from.
the joy is doing it, and the joy is going, oh, that is something. I will tell you something fascinating. I produced a movie called Finding Vivian Mayer. She had a hit. You can see it on Netflix, Amazon. I don't know. It's streaming somewhere. I'm not exaggerating. So 24 prints on a contact sheet. Okay, 20 of them were hits, and
Wow.
that was common. That was, I would say, all right, let me even lower it. 18 per 24 were ones that you'd be proud of. And generally, she only took one shot of any. She didn't do two or three to make sure. She took one shot and she was already on to the next thing.
The amazing thing, well, there's a lot of amazing things with her, but as I look at this volume of work that she created, I can't help but have this thought: who was watching the kids? Because she's
No,
a nanny.
she did it with. I produced the movie. She did it
Yeah.
with them. It was very common for her to take, children downtown or into the slums. Like she took these kids everywhere. And they got to experience life too, which is pretty cool to see things and more than the zoo, if you will. So, no, I'm sure she went out and shot on days where the family had the children, and it was a weekend. And then she took the children everywhere with her.
Now, I know I've heard you say that, of course, you do a lot of environmental photography, a lot of set photography. Do
Yeah.
you also do a lot of photography either on vacations or just not on
I
set,
do
just other people?
photography on vacations, but I guess my hit rate on vacation because of my intent might be 1 out of 50. Now, in terms of what I shoot for, it would be 30 out of 50. I'm thrilled with. You know what I mean? But that's a different approach. I'm using my
Sure.
343 in Hawaii. I'm getting animals. I'm getting my girlfriend. I will do some portraits with her, and hopefully one of them will make my heart soar. But I do not. I'm not a set photographer at any moment. I am purely environmental. That way, the set photographer is not upset with me, and they're actually
Sure.
helpful to me because I make sure if I'm shooting something, the cameras, the booms, something's got to be in there, or I won't use it. I don't, or I'll take a picture of somebody off stage without that, comedians or actors, actresses. Yeah, but I do not shoot like that's for they're being paid by HBO to
Sure.
shoot. I don't want to. And then street photography, I work at it. I've gotten better, but that's not something I do. I think that I have in the 18 years I've been shooting, I probably have a dozen really great street photography pictures in 18 years.
Okay.
So that is a way below average hit rate, way below. That's not even one a year. So, but I still do it. I really enjoy being on the street. I'm better when I plant myself and just let people in. I plant myself in a cool area because, Matt Stewart, who's a friend of mine, he's a great photographer. He just plants himself and he sees what might happen. And a lot of times he gets what might happen.
You look for light, you look for shadow, and then let things come into that space.
That's exactly right. And so a lot of times, because I'm always moving and doing things, my street photography has no, I've planted myself.
Hmm.
And also street photography doesn't work for me as it would for other people because people recognize me.
Sure. Sure.
So I'm not, there's two things going on now with street photography, and that is people are camera shy because of social media. They do not like having it. I'm generalizing again, but they don't like having their picture taken. And then you throw in the fact that I'm recognizable, easily recognizable if you know who I am. It really makes street photography difficult for me. Whereas I can be in a scene with Larry David, they'll yell cut or right before with yell action. And I'll have my camera with me. I'll put it in, if we're sitting on a couch, I'll put it under a pillow. But I'll shoot Larry David. He doesn't even blink. It's sort of like the background to him. So I'm able to do that, whereas I don't know other people in situations. My the best photo I ever took is of Margot Robbie. I was doing a movie with her, and she said I could shoot her anytime, anywhere, and she fell asleep on the set. And I took two photos, and one is the best photo I've ever taken. Play at the Leica 100. It was on display.
I really like that Sarah Silverman photo you did.
Of her laying on the stage.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of hers, and I just like the photo. It was just that's a really well composed. Just
I have a
yeah, it was
couple
just nice.
more of her. I love shooting her, and she is just so natural and genuine. So she's actually easy to shoot. Most everybody who I know is easy to shoot. A few comedians don't understand the premise of photography. Like I've gone to take their picture, and then they'll suddenly grab their wife and stand posing like a snapshot.
Sure.
And few of those people, and they get angry when I take their picture because they're not understanding what I'm doing. But I still have pretty cool photos of those people. That I'm doing a book, and it should be out next fall. I'm doing a comedy special, which will include my photography. It'll all be at the same time. I'm working towards that. But in the book, I've got numerous pictures of Sarah Silverman. I have a lot more than the show. yeah, I'm excited working on that. And with every picture, I'm going to write a little essay. Some,
Oh, that's great.
yeah, yeah. Like there was one, there's a shot that I have of Richard Kind looking very serious backstage, okay, in my dressing room with me. And what had happened was I asked him, I was a little anxious about a gig because I hadn't performed in a while. So I asked Richard if he would come do me a favor and do something on the show with me. I could interview him. He goes, I've got a monologue that I'd love to do. It's so funny. So the night of the thing, I actually was doing great. I had nothing to worry about, but I knew I had to bring him out. I introduce him. He comes out and he does a monologue that goes on and on and on. And it's about a guy who lost his memory during COVID. And there's not funny 100 miles away in every direction of that story. So we're backstage in the dressing room, and we're both sitting there. He's facing me. And I said, what were you thinking? He goes, I don't know. He goes, 5 minutes in, I knew it was bombing. And I
Oh.
said, well, why did you keep going for another 15 minutes? And he went, I don't know. I took a picture of him in that moment, and it's captured. So that'll be an essay. And the picture goes, if you see the picture and read that story, it's so funny and interesting. So that's what the book is going to be about. Yeah.
So, not long ago, I had a book published on my Cuba photography, and I just remember to have the editor and I work down to the final number of photos in the book. You know, I probably had to have 50% more photos to ultimately get down to the cut. So, have you started that process of, here's the total number and then kind of working that
I
down?
won't,
Or,
I don't, that's being discussed now,
okay.
publisher's agent, that sort of thing. I have, I could do a second and a third book with what I have. Because remember, and I'll tell you this, I never let anybody see my photographs until I'll even tell you. And it's kind of an amazing story. So I've been shooting for years, and unlike stand up, I don't have to show anybody my photos. I can learn, and no one has to know that I stink for any period of time. And I did it this is like 4 years ago, 5 years ago. I did a workshop, a black and white film workshop at Leica in Los Angeles. And we went around Chinatown shooting, and I did my stuff, blah, blah, blah. And part of the weekend was not only learning, but we're going to see our photos. They're developed on a Saturday night for Sunday to show
Hmm.
in a slideshow. And I'm watching everybody's, I'm going, oh, that's good, that's good. Now, the general manager of the store, James Paris, who's the head of the gallery,
Hmm.
they know me. I've been hanging out for years there, and I'm in a cold sweat. There's probably 20, 25 people in the room. I'm in a cold sweat. I feel like throwing up. Now, mind you, I can go up in front of 1,000 people and make up a whole set, make up the whole thing. Sometimes if the audience doesn't like me, it doesn't go so well. But in general, I can do that and be pretty fearless about it. Here I am with my photography, 20, 25 people, and I'm a wreck. I'm shaking. Well, I had no idea because it's the first time anyone's seeing my work. While we're watching everyone, I'm up towards the end. People started applauding almost every one of my pictures, applauding.
Wow.
And I wanted to cry because I didn't know if I was a good photographer. I didn't know what my eye was. I'm not even kidding you. No one was getting applause. I got applause. That's nuts. I talked to Paris and James goes, congratulations. I knew it, blah, blah, blah. And Paris says, I want to do a show with you. And I said, well, I'll show you more photos that I have and you can consider. And so that's how I got the show that you saw. But I also want to add that she had me teamed up with for my show because they do two photographers. It's
Hmm.
so big. One is half of the room, the other is half the room, the other half. And I'm not going to say who, but it was somebody, a celebrity, someone related to a celebrity, even to be more specific. Actually, someone related to an amazing talent. So they weren't a celebrity, but they were a celebrity by association. And I said to Paris, I go, no. I go, I respect my photography too much, and I don't care if the other person does. I don't care. You have to team me up with a legitimate, a real photographer, or I'm not doing the show. So I stood that line.
Hmm.
And then I ended up sharing a show with someone I admire greatly. and has taught me a lot, Alan Shaller. He's the one
Yeah.
I shared my show with. And the honor of sharing my show with Alan Shaller with his 24 millimeter Summilux and the beauties that he shoots. Oh my, that was an honor. It was an honor to have a show. But because I've always found that if you don't stick your ground for what you really believe in and you really care about, this is relationships, this is art, doesn't matter. That, and you compromise. Now, compromise with a partner is different. Sometimes there has to be. But if it's something you can't compromise, you got to stick your ground. If it's something I've done in a film, a stand-up thing, a TV show, I learned a lot of this from Larry David. Can't compromise. I got to stand my ground. At that point, with what I knew, it was easy for me to look Paris in the eyes and go, "It's not going to happen. I'm happy pulling," and I would be happy pulling. I would be. I knew that I was a better photographer than I thought. I knew I had still a lot to learn, but I knew that it would all work out because I knew that I was good. So I was happy to take a step back because I take it very, very seriously. I take it as seriously as I do my comedy. And it's the only thing that gives me a creative feeling like my comedy does.
Well, being at that show, I'm glad you mentioned this. With Alan Shaler, I mean, he's a phenomenal photographer. And as I was walking around the room that day, your work and his work, very different subject matter, but your work, I'm going to use the phrase, held its own with Alan Shaler's work, with his area of specialty.
Wait, is it Shaler or Shaler?
You know what? We'll have to
Oh, it's
ask
known
him.
as Shaler.
We'll have to ask him. I'm not
Oh, who
sure.
told you Shaler?
No, well, I thought it. Did I say Shaler? I think Shaler is what I intended.
Okay,
But
but nonetheless, I was being humble by asking you.
absolutely, yeah.
Pronouncing it wrong, okay, you win. But that is a high compliment, and I really appreciate it. That is really very, very, it's wonderful to hear.
Yeah, when I heard that you were going to be having a gallery show, I went in, just no expectation. Just
Right.
I'll see what this
I
is all
would
about.
have, if we were reversed, my expectation would be, let me see what this is. Because I would have been skeptical, not cynical,
Yeah.
skeptical. And maybe the truth is you were skeptical and you're being nice. Because I would have gone in skeptical. Jeff Garlin, the guy, the comedian, what the fuck, I would have been skeptical. So it's kind of you to say.
Well, one thing that is I've heard you talk in some things a little bit about, and that is seeing. Do you think that seeing, and I'm gonna differentiate seeing from composition? I think they're different
Right.
things. I think
Right.
composition is almost an educational sort of scholastic perspective, rule of thirds thing. I think seeing is knowing there's a photo to be had and where the photo resides. But what's
See,
your take?
my take is they're both equal in different ways. Seeing that something is really cool, if you don't have the framing, it's a waste of a picture. I don't care how cool what you're shooting
Mm-hmm.
is. So, like I told you, I focus and frame. I see what it is, make sure I'm focused if I'm not doing zone focus, and have the right framing. And I might not trust my exact framing, and hopefully I can get two shots off. That's about it.
Yeah, yeah. I know you've talked about cameras as tools, and certainly we
Yes.
refer to them as such a way. So I want to ask your opinion on this, and I actually have these two bodies, so I have an opinion, but I'm curious about your opinion. You've referred to the SL2 as a tool, functional, a tool. You're going to work it to death. Then you
Yes.
have the M11, which is
Right.
almost like a step in a way back in time. It's a very modern camera, but it's a manual process. So what kind of feeling do you have shooting that M11 versus that SL2?
I have an SL3S, two of them, they're now sold.
Okay.
So
So
that's
there's
my
the answer.
and by the way, great cameras, not good, great cameras. But I'm an M shooter, and when I go on vacation, I take my cue. That is it. Lenses, 35 Apple right here. I cannot have. I love M lenses, all good. Don't get. I've gotten rid of too many, and I regret it. But I'm an M shooter. The SL3S would be if I, like I said, commercial shooting or action in some way. That's not what I do. What I do is quiet moments on a set. I don't need sun. And also when I'm shooting on the street, I don't want anyone noticing me. And so if I have it like a monochrome, an M11 monochrome with this lens attached, I'm old timey guy as far as they're concerned. And they might not even notice me if it wasn't for my big head, or even worse, my big famous head. Yeah. So no, I'm an M shooter. So I do think by the way, I do look at the M's as tools, different kind of tool, but it's all tools. It's not, I mean, I love looking at them. They're beautiful. Here's the reason I love M. Form follows function. And I'm a stickler for form follows function. And Da Vinci said simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. So form follows function with simplicity, with seeing the picture and framing the picture. Well, I don't need anything else. Look, I've got different SD cards here. I'm not worried about I want a fast SD card, but in general, there's nothing else I'm thinking about. Nothing. And that's where you get into not even a zone where it's like you're drinking a cup of coffee. That's what it feels like. And a coffee cup is form follows function.
Sure.
And the ones that don't, with the little goofy rings or different things to it, those coffee cups can go fuck themselves. So, yeah, so I'm an admirer of the SL3S, but not for what I shoot. And I was going to shoot a film on my SL3Ss, and I had all the lenses, all the equipment. But the truth is, that's not the proper equipment for what I want to shoot. So, and by the way, if you want to shoot if it's a very much an advanced tool, but I need a complete filmmaking tool. And DP was the one who told me this is not going to serve us the way we want it to. Although many people, it will serve them perfectly. The SL3S is one of the best cameras Leica's ever made.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, you have for yourself, I believe, the trio of lenses that I started off with for my M, which is, I believe, the 28, 35, and 50.
Well, those are the ones you got to. I mean, those are I 50. Look, I have a 75, 21, all that stuff. But generally, 50 is my portrait. 35 is everything to me. I can do portrait, I can do street, and 28 is if the situation's right and I need a wide lens, go to the 28. So if someone told me I can only have 3 lenses, that's what it would be. 35 would be my one lens, and then the 50, then the 20, because the 50 is a great it's an environmental portrait lens. I love environmental portraits. I don't think I'll ever need a 90. I don't think so. I think as close as I ever want to go is a 75, because I'm not like in that sort of close-up portrait. Like a 50 does me well.
Yeah, no, it does. And I was going to mention the 75 because I was very happy with the 3 that we first mentioned. Then I got the 75, and for portraits and for street photography where you want to be a little bit removed from what's going on, it's really a great lens.
The 75 is a great lens, and also the 75 1.25 is a great lens.
Yeah.
Both those lenses are great. The 28-1.4 is a great lens, but I only need, with wide lenses, like I only have my 35 Summilux to shoot on my MP, my film camera. But you need the extra stops and all that stuff. Whereas the Leica monochrome, the current one, 35 APO with ISO, etc., I don't need anything more than this. This is plenty fast. And the thing about the Summicrons, they're so movable. They give and the 35 1.4 and 50 1.4, they're not that much bigger, but it's a difference.
Now, just to sort of change gears only slightly, so the Q, you use the Q.
The 43.
Okay, so I've heard you talk about how, from a travel standpoint, you really liked traveling at one point, different brand, but with a 40. So the 43 from Leica would make sense.
Oh, I've done the 40, but that's on another company's.
Right.
Camera.
No. Right.
No,
Right.
It didn't serve me, and I didn't fall in love with the 40. But for me to have an all-purpose where I can go portrait and wide, that's just a sweet spot. 43, and I had the 28 Q2 monochrome. I found it was always too wide for me because, like I said, my 28 is for a specific moment. And there's a portrait I did of a comedian in front of the Blue Note in New York City. on 4th Street. And it's a shot that I love. The 28, there are so many other distracting things going on that if I had the 35, they'd be eliminated. And if I had the 50s, 50, it would be perfect. And so the 28 is too specific to have that in a walk around point and shoot for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Q3 43 with that APO lens, perfection.
Now, are you a guy who just in normal life, just walks around and you have a camera with you, whether it's a Q or it's an
Okay, let's discuss that.
okay.
No, no, because before I leave the house, and I've only regretted this a handful of times, I'll say, where are you going? Is there an opportunity to get some shots, not to do? And most of the time, the answer is no. For example, and you might be guilty of this, you don't have to, but early on, I used to bring to all Leica events my camera. And then when I realized I'd never gotten an interesting picture at any Leica gallery opening or any situation where it's just a bunch of other photographers standing around,
Yeah.
I'd stop carrying them to the shows. Like I will, on a given day, most days, there's no reason for me to carry my camera. And I don't like keeping it in the car. Either it gets hot or it's vulnerable and I don't want to take it in wherever I go when I'm not going to use it. When I go do a show, quite often I bring it. When I'm on set, I'll look at what the schedule is for that day and think, oh, this could be fun here, or this lens could be great here. So it all depends on, I really take time to consider what is in my day and then what would be in my viewfinder.
Makes sense. Do you think that your work has evolved over time? Do you think you see things a little different now than maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago photographically?
Absolutely, absolutely. And that mostly comes, yes, I'm always reading photo books and I'm always talking to my favorite photographers and I go to different workshops still at this point. For me, I can go up and improvise, like I said, in front of a bunch of people, 500 people, boom. But what I've learned with my camera is to bring the same sense of peace and comfort and contentment, which makes anyone I'm shooting more at ease and makes me more at ease, which of course advances my photography.
It's funny. You and I are both baseball fans.
Yes.
We,
Now I'm
we
guessing that's a Braves jersey just by the piping. And if it's not, it's a Red Sox jersey.
Okay, so I'm gonna fess up here. Okay, you and I are both roots of
Is that a
Fife
Chicago
fans,
Cubs jersey?
and we are both Ebbets Field Flannels fan.
Yes.
Okay, so ready for the big reveal?
Yeah, it's a team from many years ago. The Baltimore Elite Giants. Yeah, I have a bunch of those type of things. But the piping is pure Atlanta Braves.
Right, right. Yeah, old school Hank Aaron, Eddie
Yeah.
Matthews, absolutely.
No, now even that's the piping.
Well, yeah, yeah. So you'll appreciate this being a Cubs fan. So years ago, Ebbets Field Flannels had these throwback Cubs jackets. And I thought I was going to wear, I had a meeting in Chicago. And so I threw the throwback Cubs jacket in my suitcase. I get there, and the guys that I was meeting, they said, hey, guess what? We got tickets for the White Sox game. So I thought, I'm from Baltimore. I thought, you know what? I'm going to be like a pro Chicago guy. I'm going to throw my Cubs jacket on because it might get chilly. I'm going to wear it to Comiskey. Can you guess how that worked out? I'm walking up and down the rows. People are yelling at me. They're throwing cups at me.
Well, by the way, it's a lot more dangerous to wear Cubs wear to a Sox game than to wear a Sox jersey at the Cubs game. People will yell at you at a Cubs game, and they'll be like, "Oh," gee. But the truth about Chicago is the White Sox fans hate the Cubs. Hate. Cub fans don't really pay attention to the White Sox, especially now. And that's really been even on years where the Cubs stink and the White Sox are good. It's not something that we pay much attention to. And actually, in a lot of ways, I root for the White Sox to win. I like it. That is the Chicago thing. I'm one of the people that is good with the Sox, but you'd be much better off wearing a Sox jersey or a Sox jacket at Wrigley because people would go, "What are you doing?" Like but the South Side, you're going to get pummeled.
Yeah. It was, yeah, no doubt. So my interest in photography as a kid started because I collected baseball cards.
By the way, before I came on here, I was organizing some baseball cards.
Really?
Yeah, I just walked away from it right now.
Yeah, so that was my, early days introduction to baseball cards. And I could actually mimic the pose of almost every one of the 600 and whatever cards in the 19 for me it was the 1976 set of cards. That's when I really got into card collecting.
Yeah, I was around 69, 70.
Yeah.
And I could stand like Joe Morgan or Bobby Tolan, who held this.
Yeah.
Like if it was distinct, I knew it, no matter what team they were on. But and I memorized a lot of the poses. But for you say 1976, you can do. And by the way, I stopped caring in 76, still a baseball fan, but the 76 design on, not really interested in any of them. So for me, the 75 is my last, the George Brett
Sure,
rookie.
rookie card.
Yeah, that season is like the last time I really cared about cards. I still care about all the other years, but in terms of wanting a set, stops at 75. So you carried on the tradition for me.
Well, you had, 75, you had Robin Yount, you had
Yep,
Freddie Lynn, Jim
yep,
Rice.
yep.
Yeah. That was a big a big set.
And Jim Rice was on a four shot, a very
Yes. Yeah, and Lynn was too. So what, just out of curiosity, what year cards were you just working with before we joined?
oh, modern.
Okay.
Some NBAs, a lot of baseball. I love Topps Heritage, which
Yes.
which currently, by the way, is doing the 1975.
1970.
So I don't know if I'm gonna focus on that next year. Maybe a new one.
So
But
I just received two boxes of the 2025 Heritage ones, and as I'm opening them, you know how the player name and the team, it has a very specific color
yeah,
combination depending on the team. So I could remember. I mean, this is yesterday, by the way. I'm opening these, and as I'm peeling open the wrapper and seeing that color start to show itself, honest to God, I had like a existential moment where it just took me back to
well,
being 8 years old.
that's the beauty of Heritage. I think it's the smartest line they have
Yeah,
because young people love it because they collect cards, period, and older people like it because it brings back a sense of nostalgia.
yeah, yeah. No, it's absolutely great. The one thing that really gets to me though, and you might care about this or be indifferent about it, but last several years they would have the cards, they would call them relics, where they would take game used jerseys, game used bats, they'd cut
Right.
them up and put
Yeah.
little pieces in a card. To
Yeah.
me, that was just like death by a thousand paper cuts, destroying this memorabilia. But do you feel like, let it go? Or, would you rather they not do that?
That did not bother me. What bothers me is if you love Aaron Judge, Otani, any great ball player, there are at least 30 to 50 rookie cards. Whereas in 1976, if there's a player that you got, it was their first year, that was their only rookie card. There were no other.
Yes.
So I think that on a lot of levels, it's a scam. So that's why Heritage brings me enjoyment. And I will buy boxes of other things, but it really, I'm going through them now, separate. Like I'm donating like a box full of rookie cards, and they're not of interest to me. And the ones that I've kept, at some point in the near future, I'll be selling.
Hmm.
I've sold about 20 grand worth of cards at this point
Okay.
recently because I'm thinning the herd, if you will.
Yeah.
But I don't. By the way, if I may, there's the what's the one with the old timey drawings? The Topps one, Topps something and something.
Yes. Oh God. Ginter
And
and yeah. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
okay. So I have a card in that line, a really cool card.
Really? Okay.
Some of them I cut up. I gave them a tie from Curb Your Enthusiasm, and in some of those, there's a piece of my Curb Your Enthusiasm tie, which might be a collector's item. Well, it would be someday, but yeah. So I participated in that, so I don't have many issues.
Well, at least you weren't playing shortstop for the Yankees and they cut your jersey apart.
Yeah.
Well, Jeff, what would be the best place for people who want to follow your photography work to keep an eye on that, as long as just, along with everything else that you have going on in terms of social media, et cetera?
On my website, there's a few. I'm not really marketing them now. I really don't want people to see them as much. And I
Okay.
will have a show or two probably before the book release. And the book release will be at the New York Leica store, the gallery there.
Okay.
That will be there, and there'll be a show that goes with it. I've never done a show in New York, Chicago, Boston, Seattle, Los Angeles as of now. It would be on my website where I'm having my next show. They're
That's
really,
great.
I know, I think maybe once or twice I put up a photo on Instagram. I think that there are some photos on my webpage, but I think they're small, and you can order them from my webpage through the Leica Gallery. You can just contact the Leica Gallery in LA, and they'll send you examples of my work and see if you're interested in buying some. Yeah, so I don't. I really, just like I didn't let people see my photography until that black and white workshop, I'm really going to announce my photography to the world when I release my book.
That's fantastic. Well, Jeff, I really want to thank you for your generosity of time and just, spending some time sharing what you've been doing and your influences. It's just really been great to have you. I really appreciate you being a guest on the podcast.
Well, you're great at what you do. I dug it. Thank you.
And I want to let everybody else know that, as you know, we publish on the 1st and 15th of every month. If you want to find out what I have going on, feel free to go to Instagram, where I'm Mitch Stringer Images. You can, of course, go online at mitchstringerimages.com. And until we join each other again, I wish you great light. I wish you great shooting. Until then, take care.